Welcome back to Ballboy Media. I'm LJ, and today we're going to be talking about some basic NBA trading rules that you should be aware of as the NBA approaches the trade deadline on February 6th. If you're new here, please like and subscribe. All your support is much appreciated. Let's get right into it. So, in terms of the salary cap, the NBA's salary cap has several layers, and they're all very important. The salary cap line is $140.6 million, whereas the luxury tax line is over $170.8 million. Just over that is the first apron line at $178.1 million, whereas the second apron line is $188.9 million. Now, you might be asking, what do these aprons mean? What is the meaning of this, and what happens if a team is over the apron? Well, there are penalties. When you go over the first apron, your salary matching is limited, and it's limited to less than or equal to 100%. Now, what does this mean? Typically, when you are a non-apron team, you can take back 125% of your outgoing salaries in a trade in salary. So, for example, if I was to be giving up a player that's making $9 million and taking back a player that's making $10 million, I could do that if I was a non-apron team. But when you're in the apron, you cannot do that. Additionally, you wouldn't really see this at this time of year, but there are no sign-in trades. Now, this isn't, no sign-in trades at all. There are no sign-in trades if you are over the apron and the trade would keep you over the apron. If the trade somehow gets you under the apron, so if you're taking in less salary in this sign-in trade deal, then by all means you're allowed to make it, as long as it gets you under the apron. Additionally, there's a smaller mid-level exception, or MLE. The mid-level exception is basically extra cash used to sign players, and it typically stands at $12.8 million. That is for, non-apron teams. However, for first apron teams, this is $5.2 million, and for the second apron, which faces all of these penalties as well as having no access to the mid-level exception, this is $0. So you're going from 12.8 to 5.2 in the first apron, 5.2 to 0 in the second. Additionally, second apron teams have no access to the buyout market. Now, this isn't related to trading. This is where teams may buy out players, so basically paying them their salary either up front or over time and letting them walk and become free agents. This is big for contending teams because typically teams that are vying to contend are those teams that you'd see in the second apron. Additionally, there are cash and pick limitations in trades, and I have them right here. You cannot put cash into trades if you are a second apron team. Basically, one common thing that contenders may do, teams that are hard-pressed for cash and salary cap space, not cash, is they will send money to other teams in exchange for low draft picks, so second-round picks typically. You're not allowed to do this, and that is going to, be a big deal for some of these teams because second-round picks, there have been some gems over the years, namely Nikola Jokic, maybe a Manu Ginobili type player, and even today, there are various gems found in the second round, and you just don't have the ability to do that if you are a second apron team. Additionally, there are limitations on picks. You cannot trade your first round pick 7 years in advance. Now, how this works is, at the start of this NBA season, we were in 2024, which means the league year started in 2024, and the latest pick you could trade was 2031. Your pick is frozen if you're in the second apron, so now you can no longer deal that 2031 pick. Additionally, if you are over the second apron in 2 out of 4 seasons, your first round pick automatically moves to the back of the first round. So there are severe penalties for the second apron, and there are lesser but still significant penalties if you are in the first apron. Now, there's only 9 apron teams, but that is roughly a third of the league, so that is kind of big. Over the first apron are the Knicks, the Heat, the Lakers, the Nuggets, and the 76ers, and over the second apron are the Bucks, the Celtics, the Timberwolves, and the Suns. Matching contracts, let's talk about it. As I said earlier, non-apron teams can accept up to 125% of outgoing salary. First apron teams can only accept, and second apron teams can only accept 100%. So, here we have a deal, and we're going to go through it. So, I like Colin Sexton, and I think he's a good player. I think he would be a better player on the Orlando Magic because what the Magic need is a fast scoring guard who fits their defensive scheme. Not that Cole Anthony can't be that, but I just think overall Sexton is a better player, and I think he brings more to the table in terms of volume scoring and having the ball in his hands. Now, I'm proposing this trade where you trade Sexton's $18.4 million salary to the Utah Jazz for the combined salaries of Cole Anthony and Caleb Houston. Total, those two players, their salaries combined to roughly $15 million, we'll call it. I did the math, and this trade works. Because 125% of $14.9 million, which is the outgoing salary in this trade, is $18.6 million. That means, in exchange for these two players specifically and their respective deals, the Magic can take in up to $18.6 million. And because Sexton is over this figure, this trade works. Under this figure, Because Sexton is under $18.6 million, he's just under about $200,000 under the figure. This trade is possible under the NBA's collective bargaining agreement. A little bit more contract language. Aggregating contracts, what does that mean? That basically means pairing multiple contracts together. That is something else that cannot be done by second apron teams. So just something to watch. On top of that, what is an expiring contract? It's exactly as it sounds. An expiring contract is a contract that has 1 year left on it and will be terminated in the following year, if not given an extension. So Ben Simmons is a great example of this. He's making $40.3 million this year, but he is a free agent. He is not under contract next season. So he is a massive example of an expiring contract. A little bit on draft picks. So each team starts with 2 tradable picks per draft. You get a first-round pick and a second-round pick, and all picks begin as tradable up to 2031. Next league year, teams will have access to their 2032 first and second-round picks. Protected picks are picks that do not convey if within a certain range at the time of transfer, and this time is set by the team that is dealing through negotiations. So typically you'll see a pick is lottery protected. What does that mean? That means that if the pick is, the draft lottery happens and the pick is in the lottery, then the team that traded it originally retains the pick. And sometimes what happens is they'll say, if it doesn't convey this year, it'll convey this year. Or let's say you have a lottery protected first round pick this year and it is in the lottery, so the team gets their pick back. They might reach an agreement where it's like, and this is, made at the time of the deal when it is dealt originally. They might say, okay, we'll trade you the 2025 first round pick protected in the lottery. But if it does in fact land in the lottery and we don't give you the pick, you get our 2026 and 2027 second round picks. Something like that might happen. Now a pick swap is similar to a protected pick, but you either get the more or most favorable or less/least favorable. What that means is you're basically giving the rights to your pick to another team or vice versa. So we saw this with the Bradley Beal trade. The Suns surrender the favorability to their picks to the Washington Wizards. Basically, they said, okay, in 2030, let's say 2030, the Wizards will have access to the Suns' pick if they choose. So, let's say the Suns are picking 10th and the Wizards are picking 20th in 2030. The Wizards would definitely say, okay, we're going to take the Suns' pick, and then they give the Suns their pick in return. That's how a pick swap works, and you'll see that come into action as we get around draft season more. The Stipien rule, additionally, is another rule that's very important when considering trading, and that is that you cannot trade first-round picks for back-to-back seasons. Stipien was an owner for the Cavs and is infamous and is the reason that this rule was created, because he kept trading first-round picks, and now teams are not allowed to follow in his footsteps. Couple teams to watch I have highlighted for this deadline. Some buyers to look out for: Grizzlies, Thunder, and Kings. Now, Grizzlies and Thunder are two of their respective powerhouses. I'm filming this at the halftime of the Thunder-Cavaliers game, and the Thunder took a 20-plus point lead into half, so they look to be the prohibitive favorite, and the Grizzlies are no team to slack on either. They are definitely a contender with John Morant and the man pictured here, Jaren Jackson Jr., as well as the Kings. The Kings are 7-2 since hiring Doug Christie. They just had, I think, a 7-game win streak. They beat the Celtics and a couple other good teams down that stretch, so I look for these teams to buy, and in terms of sellers, I think we see some teams start to bottom out a little bit. The Wizards are one of these teams. They have a couple tradable pieces, a couple good veterans, as well as the Jazz and Nets. The Nets mainly have a guy we'll talk about coming up named Cam Johnson, who is a scoring threat from all over the place. Unknown teams, I'm not sure. I would think that these teams would be buyers, and I definitely don't think they'd be sellers, but I could see it happening in all of these except the Rockets, and this would be the Warriors, Spurs, and Rockets. I think the Spurs are the most interesting team at the trade deadline because they have the potential to swing a deal for a pretty good player. Maybe they get a Jimmy Butler type player and pair him next to Victor Wembanyama, and the Spurs are already kind of lingering in terms of the NBA's playoff race, so it'll be interesting to see if they go put some chips in the middle. They have a ton of assets. Push some chips in the middle and get a formidable second option next to Wembanyama. A couple big names to watch for you. Jimmy Butler. This guy has become a polarizing figure in the NBA, and he's a good player when he's on the court. This season he's averaging 18 points per game, which is lower than usual, but we all know that playoff Jimmy is one of the most dangerous players in the postseason. Cam Johnson, too, is a stellar player. He's averaging a career-high 19.6 points per game this year, and he's shooting nearly 50-40-90. That would be 50% from the field, 40% from behind the three-point line, and 90% from the free throw. I believe he's at like 89.7%. This guy is a flat-out bucket. He can score from everywhere, and he plays some good defense, too. So if a team like OKC were to get him and I was the rest of the league, I would be very scared. He would definitely fit with the Kings as well. I like him on the Kings, or some other teams that are kind of in the mix. I think he could definitely give them a boost. Nikola Vucevic as well. This is a guy that has been in the league. I believe he's 36. He's been in the league for a long time, and this season he's kind of having a revival to his career. He's averaging roughly 20 points and 10 rebounds a game. He's posting his highest points per game since 2021 when he was an All-Star. We know the Bulls have been kind of in this state of middling around the NBA. They've been, 18 and 22, 19 and 21 through the halfway mark the past couple seasons. It's no different this season, and I expect the Bulls to start trading some assets, namely Vucevic and his co-star Zach LaVine. Couple underrated names to watch. Jonas Valanciunas. This is a guy been in the league a long time as well. Definitely knows the game. He's averaging 12 and 8 in 24 minutes per game. He plays the most of any Wizards big man, and for good reason. Now, the Wizards aren't exactly a contending team, but Valanciunas is definitely a contending player. He is a winning player. He's been on teams that have won games in the past, and I believe that he is a good center, and he can definitely start. He has not been starting this season. He's been backing up Alex Sarr, but in my opinion, he can definitely start. Robert Williams. I think Robert Williams could have a similar impact to Daniel Gafford did last season for the Dallas Mavericks. When they traded for him, it was a whole new story, and they became a whole new ball club. I think a team could do the same with Williams this season. Now, Williams' biggest problem isn't play. It's just staying on the court and being healthy. And he's shown that he can kind of play games, and when he is in games, he is pretty much an effective player. He averages 6 and 5 a game, and we know the blocks will be there. He made an all-defensive team in 2022, and we know that this is a guy who has played playoff basketball in the past. He was on the finals team for the Celtics in 2022. Additionally, Zion Williamson. This is the most interesting, underrated name to watch. Zion, former number 1 pick, but his career hasn't quite panned out the way that most have wanted it to. He's only played 9 games this season, although he has just come back from injury, and he's hooping already. He is averaging 21.7 points per game this season. He's a 2-time All-Star. Could have made an All-NBA team had he stayed healthy a couple seasons ago. That is the biggest thing. Will Zion stay healthy? And I think if a team wants to buy low on him, it could be a great investment. Thank you for watching today. Remember, the NBA trade deadline is February 6th. I will be posting like crazy around that time. Stay tuned. Please be sure to like and subscribe and comment down below a trade you want to see at this year's NBA trade deadline. Thank you for watching. It's been a blast, and I'll see you on the next episode.